good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Here we are out in the deep green. And see all of this? This is very interesting. This is skin left over from when I was really big. The fat went away, but the skin is still there. And when I stand up, it kind of goes across the whole body and you can't see it. And anyway, but yeah, here we are. I don't know, it's what, the 15th maybe? And this is what people are. Whoops, hit the wrong button.
J.D. Vance goes in there, Pete Hegseth, Trump, and apparently Code Pink, the anti-war group Code Pink, did some intelligence research here, and they figured out, they're going, somehow they got the word early, I think. They reserved some tables or whatever, and so they were in position to basically protest Trump directly to his face. We got some awesome videos.
In a restaurant. He said Hitler of our time.
So there's Trump, and here's the protesters. Look at this one.
I mean, people go on and on. I mean, when I was young, I was involved in many anti-war, anti-nuclear war, um, anti-nuclear power. And the thing is, if you we did a number of big concerts in New York, in Madison Square Garden and down at the landfill in front of the World Trade Center where we had 500,000 people. And we did the first, this is in the 1970s, we did the first Occupy Wall Street, where we really occupied Wall Street. We had, Wall Street's a teeny little street, and it's a wall because all the tall buildings are on either side. There's no real sidewalk. And we put 5,000 people there with tents and everything. And we started a little town right there on Wall Street, from Broadway over to West. And the cops, couldn't even get in to arrest us, right? And when the cops came in with the horses, Bread and Puppet got up on their stilts and walked towards the horses. And the horses freaked out and threw the cops off and ran away. And so we negotiated with the powers that be. And, we marched ourselves. We spent a week there. We closed Wall Street down. We wanted to show and that's the power, That's why there was a statue of George Washington on the steps of Wall Street for 100 years, because that's where he got sworn in. That's where the money was. That's what was all about. Live from India. Oh. How's India doing there? Give us the 411 on what's it like living in a authoritarian state. Because you heard those kids from Code Pink screaming, that Donnie was America's Adolf Hitler. He's not. He is Howdy Doody. He's a game show host. The powers that be aren't being seen. It's not Little Marco. It's not J.D. Lang. It's not any of the other. And someone objected for me to call the powers, this administration, chuckleheads. Well, I apologize, because every politician is a chucklehead and has been since our founding fathers. So it's really nothing new. The refreshing thing about this administration is that it is, what do they call it? Foretelling what's coming. Meaning, what's up with Donnie and his administration? He's not the worst. No. He's just giving everyone the heads up of what's coming. That song by The Who, Don't Get Fooled Again. I would hazard to guess that this is just going to get worse and worse and worse, but not really, right? Because, no one cares about the other, as long as you're not the other, right? Everyone, the homeless, oh, they're just the other. The immigrants, they're just the other. That people, in 100 wars around the world that corporations are doing to kill them so they can get the resources, the land, the water, the oil, the gold, the diamonds, the rare earths. That's what these wars are about. The war in Ukraine and Russia is all about that. It's to rejigger because basically the EU is broke. '08 broke them, right? And so that's why they're ready, willing, and able to put all the money that when they were a social democrat and gave their people a somewhat of a safety net, they're taking that money and putting it to weapons because they can get rich on that, and they can basically turn Russia into a Disneyland, right? And that's why Putin was put in power. He was a bag man, right? So he's going to run off to China, or so. That's why he went to China to make the deal with Xi that he can, build a little Russia in there, and basically what's going to happen is, Russia back in the day took a lot of land from China, something to a close of third of what North America is. That's what Russia took from China, right? And there really wasn't anything important there. Russia just likes these barriers. They're always concerned about being invaded. Don't even disrespect my location like a garden elf. Well, I am a garden elf. Come on. Please. Uh, India is a land of grace and beauty. But the way that the rich treat the poor, they're not too nice, right? The way that the corporate structure of India, which is, people say, "Oh, America's becoming, fascist." Well, fascism is when corporations are the government, not when money buys government power, right? That's plutocracy, And socialism is when the government owns the money, right? That's kind of what, a good chunk of Europe is like that. And anyway, so all of these, whatever you want to, you know, names that you would call a country or whatever, you know, it's irrelevant. The only thing that is relevant is you were put on this earth to know love, right? So who's Mr. Indian boy? Uh, Interesting history. Let's see now. Don't ever disrespect my looking like a garden elf. Like I said, guys, you have to put this shit in capital so I can read it. I don't have my glasses. I lost them. Or I misplaced them. I didn't lose them. 1934. Whoa, that's him. Mike's, let's see. Stuff. 1934. Had his friend and Sarchi Kivo, led by Leonard, like a vast new justified great plunge, something hundreds of thousands. Yeah, pretty much. Same as it ever was, right? Same as it ever was. So anyway, America, I mean, there's nothing different from today than from when Biden was being president or when Donnie was the first time or when Obama. I mean, Obama gathered up more illegal aliens than Donnie ever did in the first 4 years, He killed more people than George W., right? So it's going to happen. The next iteration, right? We're going to probably have martial law, no elections, and then there'll be this kind of strange kind of revolution, like a digital revolution. And our next president, after J.D. Lang, or whoever, maybe Little Marco, or whatever putz they want to put in there, Um, you know, basically it will be Michael Obama, right? And um, and Pete Buttigieg, and what other chucklehead they want to put in, and we will. Everyone will have to wear code pink, right? Those girls who were going, Johnny's our Adolf Hitler, and free Palestine, right? Well, the Palestinians that need to be freed are the people in Israel, right? The see, they're not even Jews. They're Zion. They don't see the sad thing about Israel is that the folk who are there don't even know who they are. And if they step out of line, ooh, it's not pretty for them. So at least the people in the strip know what's going on, and they are basically, living in their culture, they're living the life of a martyr, right? So, you know, 60 to 150,000 people have been killed in the strip. We really don't know. Probably never will, because everything's just concrete dust. So, and you got to realize that Hamas will never basically give up because they're being paid by the IDF and Mossad. That's who Hamas was put there by the IDF, right? And Mossad. The IDF knew that they were coming on '07. They knew for a whole year. There was an article a year before October 7 in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal that, hey, Hamas is, gathering up people, getting supplies, doing exercises in the desert near the fence. They're doing something, and all the girls on the fence with the binoculars, hey, there's something going on here. And about, they just kept saying, hey, we got to do something. Like, get some more guys here, put some tanks here, do something. Because there was not, actually, they took whatever military there was on the south side there where Hamas came in and took them up north to put on the border where Lebanon was, and there was just a handful of soldiers, a couple hundred at that, and and the girls were going, hey, there's something. I mean, they got these kites and they're flying through the air, and there's something going on, and the army took them off like a week before, just took them off, took everyone out of there who could say what was going on, unplugged all the sensors and all of that. And then, boom, Hamas comes through the gate, right? And it doesn't go and rape and burn and kill. No, it went straight to that army base where the 200 or so army guys were and took them prisoner and put them in SUVs and shot them right out of there. And then there were a couple of little hamlets where people were hanging out. They grabbed them, put them in an SUV, took them out of there. But and that was a military, and they did it very militarized, right? But you know, everyone who's living inside the gated community prison of the Gaza Strip, for the last 20 years, have never seen anything close to freedom or, they went through the hole as Hamas and black brand new SUVs were taking 200 or 300 hostages into Gaza. About 500 ragtag criminals, meth heads, came in and went like, let's steal a refrigerator. Oh, let's get a watch them. Let's rape grandma. And they were the guys who kind of went over to where, and there was this like music festival. And the producer said that he actually heard from some of the girls on the fence that something was going on in the strip, and he said to the IDF, "Hey, maybe we're not going to. Oh, no, do it. If you don't do it now, you're not going to get a permit to do it anytime soon. And we'll have some security there. We'll put some soldiers there," which they didn't. Anyway, so this is all in the New York Times, Washington Post. This is all in Haras, a Israeli newspaper. So let's see. So what do you guys say? Used to justify A great purge. Yep. Usually is the way.
Boom, we're recording. Test, 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 test. United for separation of church and state. Since 1946, AU has supported the First Amendment right of freedom of religion. More at au.org. And from the listeners who support this NPR station. From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Mary Louise Kelly. And I'm Juana Summers. In Florida, federal jurors heard opening statements today in the trial of Ryan Ruth. He's the man charged with attempting to assassinate Donald Trump last September. At that time, he was running for president. This was the second alleged attempt on the Republican candidate's life last year. This one happened at Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. Ruth has pleaded not guilty to all charges. The judge hearing the case allowed Ruth to represent himself in court, but that effort quickly ran into trouble today. She ended his opening statement after just a few minutes.
Club when he heard gunshots. He saw Ruth run out of the bushes and across the street. Today, McGee.
Okay, give me that phone number and the person's name.
The news roundup. I'm Todd Zwillick here with Arthur Delaney, senior reporter for HuffPost. Eva McKay is here, national politics correspondent for CNN, and David Smith, Washington bureau chief for The Guardian. All right, let's move on to a lot of new revelations this week on the connections between alleged sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
They won't let that go.
Jeffrey Epstein and powerful political figures in his orbit. On Monday, Epstein's estate delivered a handmade book of personal notes, drawings, images commissioned in 2000.
Guys, this is. There's never been a time when there wasn't an Epstein, right?
By Epstein's former girlfriend and associate.
Every politician. I mean, look at, Billy Boy, right? Look at Woodrow Wilson.
President Donald Trump.
He married a prostitute, a K Street prostitute. And she was a plant, just like Billy had, what's her name? What's her name, that girl? That she had a dress on, that Billy put the seed on, and then that girl's handler kind of put it in evidence back, and, Billy got, caught red-handed. That was Woodrow Wilson. He got us into World War I. He got us into having a central bank. He got us into having the Internal Revenue. We never had any of that.
Analyst who said that this absolutely was not the president's authentic signature, and we have maintained that position.
I love this girl.
The president did not write this letter.
I just love this girl.
Signed this letter, and that's why the president's external legal team is aggressively.
I hope she's getting paid a lot of money. I really do.
That's Arthur Delaney, not able to hold back his incredulity at that.
It's incredulity.
White House President
These guys who are the news guys talking to you right now, they're on the pay too. They were at the party with Donald,
Trump's, but the Washington Post did go to the trouble of getting a handwriting.
I never went to those parties because I didn't need to. Because the girls who were drawn, I didn't have to go looking for women. They kind of, hey, you're cute. And they usually were the smart ones. They were the ones who were fun. They were the ones who knew who they were and enjoyed the fact that I appreciate who they were. And we had a nice human relationship, right? We weren't like, animals? They're just animals. We can kill them. They're just animals. Back in the day.
Other notes, and there are many of them because he wrote a lot of notes, that he was writing in that era to compare them side by side.
He's like Plato,
The note did not exist at all. That it was a concoction. So they quickly pivoted to this isn't the signature, which you can Google Trump's signature in 1 second, see that it is his signature.
That's what I say. He's a game show host. Can't you realize that this is just a TV show? A lot of people are going to die. A lot of, everything's going to get radioactive. I mean, he wants to sell 300 million tons of weapon grades plutonium on the open market. Not like, give it to this country or that, but on the open market. What a grift. Go down to Walmart's and buy some weapon-grade plutonium.
Collection of photos, yearbook pages, song sheets, other mementos.
Ooh, other mementos.
That 2007 non-prosecution agreement that Epstein had with the U.S. Attorney.
Yeah, that was a get out of jail card.
And so this is, I think, going to continue to be a persistent problem for this White House. We have already seen the issues.
Don't ever disrespect that. I look like a garden gnome.
Republicans on the Hill have been really supportive of the president and eager to change the conversation.
I saw Speaker of the House Mike Johnson asked if he thought the signature in the note was fake, and he said yes, he thought it was fake. That was his response. David, Maggie Haber.
Oh, that guy. He's even smaller than little Marco.
White House briefing this week of Carolyn Levitt, the White House press secretary. This was the gist of it. If Trump's signature is fake and a Democratic hoax, how is it included in a 23-year-old book?
Yeah, how'd they do that? Time machine?
I was at that White House press briefing and I started my report of it by highlighting Maggie Haberman for cutting to the chase, because in the White House's version, the only logic could be, somebody built a time machine, some Democrat went back 22 years and planted this letter. I mean, it just doesn't make
no sense, kids.
It is pulling an Orwellian thing here of trying to say, don't believe your eyes, 2 + 2 equals 5. I think the other point about this whole scandal is, Donald Trump famously shrugs off all these political crises, but on this occasion, he's actually behaving like a typical politician with something to hide. Normally, he's very transparent. He puts it all out there. He blatantly says, yes, I'll accept a $400 million jet from Qatar or whatever. This time, he's refusing to reveal the files. He's behaving like a politician who doesn't want you to know some deep, dark secret.
Arthur, he's behaving like...
And that deep, dark secret is, hey, don't look, look at this, but don't look at what we're doing to your country, to your laws, to your life. Oh, don't look at, you can't pay your debts. You can't, what's truly amazing. So, at a point in my life, I had a lot of cash, a lot of real estate, a lot of stuff, right? And that's why I got to be 500 pounds, because I was living the lifestyle of a lot of stuff, right? The desperate corporate world. But I really didn't go as desperate as the clientele I had. So I could get them, they would paint themselves into a corner and I could help them get out of that. But anyway, when I died and they were about to chop me up like bologna, and I said, no, I'm going to heal myself with God's love. And they said, good luck with that. And I did, right? But, God said, when I was living that corporate life, having like 300,000 calorie lunches with the boys, and then going on to the executive club, I said, God, is this a sin? And God said, of course not. This ain't a sin. Now, if you worshiped it, like those clowns, they are worshiping that style of life. You're just going along for the ride. No, not a sin. But there is a cost to it. There is no free lunch. And, dying and then, my body being ravaged, that was 10 years ago. My body's still ravaged. I'm 190 now. I'm my high school weight, right? So that's what it is. And, so I lost a car. I can't go anywhere. I have to walk a mile just to talk to you guys. And I'm doing it on my passive-aggressive phone. My laptop, so I can't write. My laptop is my everything is kind of. But I was sitting in the sun this morning. It was a beautiful day, and basically God said, "Look how much you have. Don't look at what you don't have." And God was right. So, what do I think about? Guys, you gotta put it in capitals. What is that word? Can you put that one word into a capital so I can read it? I don't have my glasses. Sorry. I think of Freemasonry. Oh, okay. You got it all in one thing. Freemasonry, it's like a country club. That's all it is, right? It's it has aspects of the esoteric, right? and that's all it is. And there are. It's like in Judaism, you have you know the Torah, the Kabbalah, not the Torah, the Tabla, and the Kabbalah, right? Freemasonry is kind of like the Tabal, meaning it's esoteric. Now, the Cabal, that's a cult. And a cult is when you're dealing with the paranormal, right? So, you know, Freemasonry really isn't there, right? Now you get to like the 33 degree, they start doing. Did you ever read that? Did you ever see that movie with, what's his name? The guy who was Captain Jack. And there he was. He gathered rare books and sold them to rich people, and that, he was a grifter with rare books. And this guy, real rich guy, wanted to get these pages, secret pages of a book that were missing, so he could become like God. And didn't work out too good for him. What's that guy's name? Anyway, so that movie, whatever that movie was, listening. Hey there, James. Um, so anyway, so the Freemasonry is really boring. Um, I mean, it's chump change to, you get chump change to sell your soul. You want to sell your soul to Freemasonry, good luck with that. I lived in Asheville. I rented the Masons Lodge, the super duper Mason Lodge that was built like in the 1880s. I mean, it had portals, you name it, had kitchens everywhere. It was a great place to have a party. And nobody wanted it. It was like they had one gigantic room without a single column. It was about 10,000 square feet. It was pretty amazing. It was like anti-gravity. And a friend of mine put a gigantic swing up there. And she would, so it's, the roof is 40 foot high, and it's like, 10,000 square foot and big swing, wee, wee. And part is she would swing on that naked, right? And she had the greatest body, and it jiggled and jangled and moved with gravity with ease. There are a couple of songs about, watching someone on a trapeze. Well, that was her, that was her theme song. And we had great parties. And she could raise, she could get her butt on the thing, and then we could raise it up so she would be swinging through the air at about 10 feet above our head. And I had one gigantic, when we had parties, I had Christmas lights on the floor, so the floor was kind of lit up, but nothing else, so you wouldn't kill yourself. And I had a really big mirrored ball that was maybe 3 feet in diameter, and I had some nice pin spots. And so, boy, that was like, woo! And then I had little, like 8-inch mirrored balls, about 10 of them, and I put them around the room and had them going different directions with pin spots on them. And so the whole room was like, very old school, very, and so you do that in a ceremonial temple of a Masonic lodge, woo, with a naked girl on a swing, woo! That was so much better than Bohemian Grove. Now, those guys are such old farts, right? And I would have like, old timey music guys from, the Bloody Madison, the guys who did Bud and Shine, and they loved it. They were my buddies. They would come to these parties. We also had the building in Asheville called the Pink House. It was a really nice house right on this little river that kind of goes off of the French Broad and kind of goes over near where, goes kind of through town and goes over to past UNCA. And this guy who was a great herbalist, where UNCA was his herbal college, right? And he owned that whole mountain. And he had it covered in medicinal herbs, and like the, Smoky Mountains and the Appalachians have more cures to more diseases than the rainforests in Brazil. And of course, what are they doing? They're cutting it all down and building golf courses and shitty little gated communities, because who needs cures for disease, right? Who needs to, put your body at ease? You might think about something. You might see reality. You might understand what life's about. Let's see. How much guys, you have to take your cues from Jamie. He's very nice at putting it in capitals. See, I can see it. Love from Ireland, capital writing, better for Al. Yep. How much donation for you? Kiss me. Well, I have no idea. Let's see. Cash. Yep. Cash. Always cash. Cash is king. But Donnie signed. They passed in the great beautiful bill. They have some really stuff on there. But one of the things that was passed and no one noticed was a thing called the Genius Bill. And what it did was already they had it already. Um, Money, cash doesn't exist anymore, right? I mean, we use it. We pay for it. Credit cards don't use it. We use it, but from this point on, from what actually back then, like 3 months when he signed it, the whole world was on this gig where your face is your money, right? You walk into a store, the cameras look at you, measure everything about the size of your forehead, your nose, everything, because these are the things you can't really change, um, and your iris too. So. But your fingerprints are, they're not very good. I mean, when it was analog in the 19th century, yeah, that would kind of, but really, not really. But anyway, but your face and your iris and your voice too. There's things about your voice. You can make it sound different ways, but the way the chords in there work, it's only you, baby. So anyway, that's what the Genius Bill. So the technology's all there. Your refrigerator's watching you, listening to your big screen TV is watching and listening to you. So they're getting every little bit of about you. And it took your cell phone. We were given basically these cell phones. Google was basically given to us because when we Google something, Google is Googling us more than we're Googling Google. So they know everything about us and where we are, where we think, what we eat, everything. We know it. They know it all. So they can the algorithm can just figure you out, right? No problemo, baby. And all our technology, like this phone that I'm talking to you on, is a miniaturization of the 1970s satellite that was up in space that watched everyone. It was called Keyhole. So this thing's Keyhole satellite. But instead of looking at the Russians or the Chinese, they're looking at me, right? And what they're doing is they're looking at the modality of how I exist, who and what he is. How can we manipulate him? What can we do? What kind of resource is he? Meaning, I'm a resource to these guys. Me doing this show, I'm being a resource. Why do you think I can do this show? Because I'm being allowed to, right? Master and the doctor, right? Exactly. Yep. Yeah, Doctor Who. So for many years, I was known as the doctor. Back in the day when I had my practice, right, my healing practice, my and I had my mystery school. I mean, that's what I bought this place for. I had a mystery school here. After the school that Johnny Boy bought, and poor Johnny, that place is so great. It has such positive, amazing, and that's why he's so down to the dumps and whatever he is because there's so much love in that place, so much positive energy that the darkness that resides inside of him double downs on the poor guy, right? I mean, there were times when I had him really almost, you know, being happy. Let's see, I didn't like the past of the big, beautiful bill. Yeah, baby, 1,100 pages. I read them. Woo-wee. Where they looted estate mercantile. Yep. On AI. Yep. Go read that Genius Bill. That's the one that's truly. Let's see. But the bottom line of all of this is that none of this shit matters. You think this is the first rodeo of this? No, I've experienced this 8 other times. I remember, I was born in 50, so like I can remember being born and so I remember Korean War, right? And my dad had one foot in the army and one foot out. So he wasn't going out of country, but they had that war so they could rejigger after 1947 when they had the National Security Act and all the alphabet things came on board and the government and everything changed and our Congress we don't all of that stuff in DC is a joke because what's running our government is COG, continuation of government, right? NorthCon. And guess where NorthCon is located? Canada. Canada is where the ruling class is, not America. Sorry, kids. Why do you think we were cored out? Why do you think all the corporations left here in the 50s? That's when that started, not under Jimmy Carter or Bill Clinton. No. So it's what chucklehead is going up the road now? Yeah, just ripped that road up. So back in the day, when I was called the doctor, one of the things I used to denote, I would say, because my grandma would say that. My grandma used to say to me, "That's we live in places where there were really great people, great artists, great geniuses, great everything, but there were also chuckleheads, right? And they would do really stupid stuff, and then the community would have to deal with it, right?" And so my grandma they curse like sailors and be stupid and not very polite to anybody and be bullies but they were morons, right? So because they would bully the wrong person, like the gangster guy who was kind of really polite. The really scary gangsters were polite to the general public. They would walk through the street and they would give people stuff, right? $10 bill, dime, whatever. And that's what J.D. Rockefeller did. He had silver dimes and would hand them out to people, right? Anyway, so you think this is the first time? You think what's going on here now is the first time it happened in America? No. Right. You go back to the times before, go back to when Europeans first got here, back in the day of Columbus, right? And he was a psychopath. His best talent was he could write. He had nice handwriting. The Jesuits really kind of broke him, and he had really good handwriting. And he was very descriptive. So the Queen Isabella paid him because he went to certain places and he described what was going on. And it was like having a cell phone and getting a picture of it, right? So she's going to invest in this property. He could describe it really well, the people, everything. And then he'd grab a few of them and bring them back to Europe and say, yeah, this is what the natives look like. So that's what they, the first place that Europeans, like Chris went to, not North America. He didn't stop in New Jersey. No, he stopped in what is now known as Haiti. And then it was called Hispaniola, right? And it had a great culture of about 6 million indigenous people there that had medicine and science and written language and art and music and no war. So Chris came in there, the big ship there, they were dying of the thing when you don't eat enough oranges. And basically the Indians went out, got them in the canoes, brought them back to help. And Chris said, wow, these guys are great. They're tall, they're beautiful, they're smart, they're generous. They don't have a mean bone in their body. They'll make great slaves. And so he went back. He grabbed about 20 of them, took them back to Spain, showed them to the Queen, went back about 2 years later with his psychopath son and 2,000 shock troops with rifles, pistols, and cannon and explosives, and took over the place. And basically clear-cutted everything, took all the medicinal plants that were growing there and just burnt them and grew cotton, sugar, tobacco, and a few other things, palm oil, and made a lot of money. And those 6 million people died within 8 years, mostly of disease, but being shot and raped and take yeah. You see my background? It's the deep green, right? So um, this is why I live here. It's quiet, right? And you said hi. Hi. I see your background. Yep. What is that? Again, put this stuff in capitals so I can read it. How you old? I am 1,000 years old. Did you ever hear Mel Brooks's take on the 1,000-year-old man? That's me. So anyway, is it gonna rain? No, it's not gonna rain. Yeah, you can. Let's see. You can. It's the blue sky with the clouds. So it's nice. There's enough clouds to keep the sun away from making me hot, and yeah, that's the deep green. Anyway, so yep, I'm the 1,000-year-old man. Yep, that's why I have so many names. And Al Bob, Sensei Al Bob, those names were given to me. I didn't think that up. Sensei, I studied with many senseis, and I helped build many ashrams. And as they, got older and older, and the ashrams got more established, I was part of you know, the starter crew, right? And so I had, I wasn't there all the time. I was doing all kinds of other stuff, but I would show up and basically, when the master died, and there were about 4 of us who were his students, we became sensei because we were teachers. That's what we were. That word sensei is Japanese for teacher. No real. I mean, you're supposed to give your teacher. Be nice in America if they gave teachers some kind of respect, but they don't. But other places they do. So that's especially in Asia. So that's why they call them sensei. So that's how I got that name. And then I had a few of my own schools, right? So that's, again, people called me sensei. And then I was at Cornell, and I, for about 4 years, and I was a research fellow there, and the Iroquois Nation's up there. That's where the Finger Lakes are. And so they're up there in a big way, and they own everything. They rent everything to white people, but they own it all. And I was involved because with the tribe because it was grandfather David, right? He was the elder, and then his son David Yarrow was the chief of the Iroquois Nation, right? And there was like 12 nations, the Iroquois Nation, I think. I don't know, but a few, more than 3. And so that was in 1988, and the year 2000 or 99. New York State legally was going to go back to the Iroquois Nation. Well, that was never going to happen, so we had to negotiate a deal, which we did. And I basically drove. Grandfather David did most of it. David Yarrow, seeing that he was the chief of the nation, legally. So Grandfather David Yarrow's father, basically went to, I guess it was Syracuse. So we would drive from Roanoke to Syracuse. He had a really nice 1969 black Cadillac DeVille, and he couldn't see, and so I was his driving Miss Daisy, right? So I would drive, and we would talk about everything, right? So, and it would take us at least 2 hours, at least. And there were a couple of places we'd stop either for breakfast or lunch, and whenever we got there, the meeting would start. I mean, they had to wait for him. I mean, we'd get there at a nice time, not like, put him out of their way, but we'd get there when, we wanted to get there. So anyway, Um, so that's how I got the name Owl, OWL, Sensei Owl, right? Because I always had this interesting, grandfather David. He was the bomb, right? He was it. He was the authority. But in those 2 hours, and maybe another hour of breakfast, we would talk strategy. And he kept saying, yes, I'm grandfather, but you are you're something else, buddy. So that's how. So the Iroquois name I was given was Sensei Al, right? And later on, um, in the '90s, there was oh, if you go Google electric spacecraft, there was a guy. I think his name was Bob Goddard. I'm not quite sure. It was Bob something, and or the Bob. I mean, but he was Bob, and he was like Nikola Tesla. He was like, and he worked everywhere. He worked on Manhattan Project, not on the bomb, but the really crazy shit, like the Philadelphia experiment and Montauk Project and stuff like that, and lots of other stuff. And so he was kind of like me. He was like in these programs, but not in them. He never like got dipped, right? He would work on a thing that he had a skill set for, and then they said, "Boy, you're a really smart guy. You want to be part of this? You'll get a lot of blah blah blah, a lot of cred, right?" And he said, "No, no, no. I think I'll just, I have another offer from Motorola," and he'd go do something like that, and then they call him again and say, "Hey, we got this other thing that's really we have no idea what it is. You want to try and figure it out?" And he'd make the deal. So that was, I was his apprentice, the sorcerer's apprentice. So that's how I got the name Bob because he was Bob. I don't know where he got his name Bob but if you go look up, it might be Charles Yost, might be his name. Not quite sure because he was just Bob, right? And so it was electric spacecraft. And when he started publishing stuff, and we had our little lab, it was up there above Asheville. It was like between Asheville and Madison County. So I'm not quite sure where it was, but it was up there, and it was kind of in a triangle between Asheville, Madison County, and Mount Mitchell, kind of near Micahville and Little Switzerland. So I'm not, and this is a long time ago. This is in the early '90s. So, but anyway, that's how I got my name, Sensei Al Bob. Uh, That was given to me, not like my slave name. So, um, because that shows ownership, right? So, can you hear me? Did you see the Queen Isabella comment? Isabella comment. No, tell us. I didn't get that. What was Queen Isabella's comment? I'm being censored. Well, the internet is going bye bye. Did you notice how Neon Husks? That's my nickname. I'm going to give all these guys nicknames, right? Their chucklehead name, their code name that Peter Tilk has given them. Peter Tilk is like the Emperor in Star Wars movies, the Sith King or whatever. That's Peter Tilk. But anyway, Neon Husks, satellite communication system went down, like went totally down. And what they're doing, they're rejiggering it because next thing to go down is all of the internet going down. So everyone's instruments, everything, not going to work, right? No. And that's why God took it all away from me, except for my passive aggressive phone here. Um, that I'd be, when the shit turns off, I got a few photocells and batteries for lights. I got a little gas heater. I just filled up for gas. I'm good till spring for gas. So I got water. What more do I need, right? I got probably 2 years worth of canned food, and when that can starts rusting on the outside, it's just getting good on the inside. Let's see. Message is held in review. Is that James? Is that you? You're being held in review? Anyway, so how many people are on? About I have to. Where's the dark space? About eight or nine, maybe six. I can't really see it. They make this shit so teeny weeny, I can't even see it. Let's see, how long have I been on? Oh, about 50 minutes. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob. Don't believe a word I say. Um, hope you're doing well. I'm doing great. Can't complain. You know, you should never complain because it always can be worse, right? I'm I'm always in pain. I have neuropathy. I have osteoarthritis. I have diabetes. I'm blind. What else? I got a whole bunch of other things. You know, Charcot feet. You know, my feet are like broken plates. And if I thought about the pain, I'd be screaming, but I don't. You know, I think about God's unconditional love for me. That's what I think about. And so right now, you know, I've been sitting in this chair for a while, and so I'm starting to rust. You know, I don't know if I'll be able to get up. That's why I sat next to steps over here so I can lean on the post. But anyway, um, ooh, do do do. Do 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 do.
Okay, give me that phone number.
I'm Todd Swillick here with Arthur Delaney, senior reporter. Netflix British drama called Adolescence. It's up for 13 Emmys, including 3 for Stephen Graham, who's our guest today. One is for co-creating Adolescence, another is for co-writing it with Jack Thorne, and a third is for his
This show, that thing was whatchamacallit. Fresh air.
You can find out more about American Roots on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our website, AmericanRoots.org. Remember, Roots is spelled R-O-O-T.
So this is all I can. This is what I live on. Public radio.
Time for American Roots from PRX Public Radio.
Do, 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 do. Yeah, sure. You can still use ham radio. Yeah, that's still there. That works. CB too.
From the campus of East Tennessee State University.
Yep,
This is WETS HD1.
that's my channel.
Sure. Yep. Thank you, okay.
There was only one reported case from the outbreak, so perhaps the country's getting better at dealing with these outbreaks.
Yeah, it's getting mosquito time.
now from Central Africa to East Africa, where Malawi will hold elections.
This is the BBC,
With more than half the country's population below the age
so I can listen to shortwave.
demand for youth inclusion in politics is drawing attention. The campaign, which has been largely dominated by youth unemployment, poverty and inequality, has seen young people demanding their place at the table. The BBC's Nomsa Maseko reports from the capital Lilongwe.
Hundreds of frustrated motorists and motorbike owners form long queues at fuel stations here in the capital Lilongwe and in many other parts of the country.
And that's what's going to happen to us. You know, there are going to be long lines. I don't know if any of you guys remember the oil embargo of 1972. I mean, those lines went on forever. And what was truly interesting, Chrysler made a gas turbine car, right? And made about 600 of them. And I had a friend who actually got his hands on one. And we were going to knock it off. You know, we were going to, this guy was up in Woodstock, and he was quite the inventor. His parents had big farm of greenhouses, and they grew flowers and vegetables. And you know, they got put out of business by airplanes flying cut flowers from Central and South America. So anyway, but they died. He inherited their farm, and he had, like, you know, 300 acres under glass. And so we were experimenting with solar things, and we did a lot of great stuff. And he got his hands on one of these gas turbine things, and like 10 years before then, in the mid 60s, I was at Cooper Union in this program called Alternative Technologies, and we had to do a project that would kind of, you know, change the world, right? And my group, who I was part of, we were part of the stoners. You know, everyone in my class pretty much were electrical engineers. So they wore black pants, white socks, white shirt, black tie, slide rule on their hip. This is in the days of slide rules. And this is in the days when I could do math in my head. Not anymore. Anyway, so because I would simplify shit. You know, they'd be these gigantic equations. I would erase 90% because this is all you need, you know. And so, and that's how I got in this program. I was in an electrical engineering course, and I was, you know, and Grandpa Stahl showed me how to tune a big transformer. And there was it's called a field equation that you use to tune a large industrial transformer. And so little ones, no big deal. Big ones, you know, like for a city, you had to be subtle. Anyway, so I learned that. And Grandpa still took me to Cooper, and when we went into the president and said, hey, this boy's going to go to school here. He needs to get a degree in electrical engineering. And the president said, well, Grandpa, you know, how old is he? He looks pretty young. You got to be 21 to go to the school. He goes, come on, he's 16. That's old enough. He's been my apprentice for how many years? 16. So that's 18 years. I mean, 8 years. I was his apprentice for 8 years. Yeah, if it was 18 years and I was 16, that would have been time travel. But anyway, we did a little of that. And thanks for the thumbs up, guys. Keep throwing them up there. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. You know, hit that little bell so when I come on, because I don't come on at any specific time. I just, you know, I like walked a mile so I could do this, right? Because I don't have a car. You know, driving a mile is real easy. Walking a mile and your legs don't work. Going up a hill with a lot of rocks. But, you know, I worked on the road. No one else does. I don't even have a car anymore, and I still freaking work on the road. That's because if I ever want an ambulance to come and get me, I have to make sure they can get on that road. Anyway, that's another story. Anyway, so there I'm at Cooper Union. I'm in this electrical engineering course. The guy doesn't even see me. And he's going on, and all the guys are like looking worried because they don't have a clue what he said, because he's got this gigantic equation on a whole frigging, blackboard, 22 feet of a blackboard, 5 feet high. And he's got, chalk dust all over him, and he's smoking a cigar in a pipe, and he's just, this guy's nuts. I'm just watching it, and I got a pair of jeans on, I have, what's the 60s, so what, I think I had some band, punk wasn't around yet, so it was maybe Bachman Turner Overdrive or somebody. I had some because I worked at the Fillmore East, and those guys would come in and they'd sell their merch, and hey, here's a couple of T-shirts. You did a great job. And so I had quite the T-shirt collection. Anyway, so I had that and my Keds. I used to wear Keds, right? I had yellow Keds, blue Keds, and black Keds. I thought that was funny. So anyway, I'm sitting there watching, and I just, the president kind of puts me in a class. The guy who's doing it, he doesn't even notice the president's there. Doesn't even notice, the other guys don't know to stand up, sit down. What are they supposed to do? And I just sit down, and I just have, a little notebook and a pen, and I'm sitting and I'm looking at this. I'm just shaking my head. And the guy goes, does anyone have any questions? And everyone's, because I have no idea what this is. And this is supposed to be a field equation that you balance a large transformer by. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, what's the question? And I go, well, that's not a field equation. He goes, what are you talking about? That's Johnson, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, that's in the textbook, but that's not a field equation. What are you talking about? And I said, a field equation is done in the field, and you don't have a 22-foot, blackboard to do it. No. Here, let me show you. So I get up there. He's just spent like a day and a half putting this equation on a thing. I take the eraser, and I erase 90% of it. And I go, see, I put a circle around this part. Is this rain coming? Does that sound like rain coming? Or is it just the wind? You know what's scary here? Here, I'm going to show you. These are poplars, right? And these are basically weeds. When I moved here, these poplars were right about that high. Now they're another 70 feet high. And they have no real roots. And so they can fall down. I mean, if I could see that thing right there, that's part of it, one of these big trees that fell down and went that way. So at any time, one of these trees can fall. And you got to be, like this guy. It's a pretty big, that's that's 40 yards from me, and it's maybe 200 and something feet, so that thing would smash into the house, but it would hit me first, so I have to be able to get up and move 10 feet over there. So I was sitting here the other day, and another tree, one of these big trees fell right there, and luckily it fell into the woods and not like into the road. Then that would have been tough. But it didn't matter to me because I don't have a car. So anyway, so that was, that's the story about the trees. So, no, it's not raining, but a little gust of wind. So whenever it winds like that, and you can hear the trees kind of cracking, and groaning. And that's like that one over there. So I'm here a lot. I sit on my lawn a lot. And it's like... every week, 2 to 5 those big trees go down in the forest. Now, if they had built 30 houses like they thought, there's only 3 houses. This thing is 40 years old, and there's only 3 houses, right? 2 burnt down, there's 3 left, right? And I don't really even have a house. I have a little travel trailer. I built pads to build big houses, $1 million houses, but no. The guy, whoever I leave this property to, We'll do something with it. Your English is not bad. The great one. Slav, Ukraine. Where I grew up in New York City, in Harlem, 2nd Avenue, from about the United Nations, from about 52nd Street all the way up to 190, where the Harlem River was. That's where the Europeans live. Every 2 blocks was, Polish, all the different kinds of Poles, Lithuanians, all the different kinds of Lithuanians, Russians, all the different... Hear that? That's a tree. You hear that? It's a whole bunch of leaves that started to fall. I got to be careful. I got a big house behind me that will, the tree will hit it first. But I have to be aware of where it's coming from. You always got to know your 360. Where you are, what's going on around you. You got to know. Otherwise, it gets in your grill, can fuck you up. So anyway, 2nd Avenue. All of the different Europeans, Baltic Europeans, Western Europeans, you name it, right? They were all there. That's why the United Nations was put there. And then inside to where Lexington and Madison, that Second Avenue, inside where Lexington and Madison were, that was like, like something out of Harry Potter. All these old, nice brownstones, really like where the Gilded Age kind of stuff. Now, God knows what they did to that property, but and those was nice, 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 and there were a lot of paranormal holes, a lot of buildings. If you went into them, if you turned the wrong way, you ended up in Sweden 1403. It's like or back with Jesus. I mean, it was quite an interesting, like where St. Patrick's was had some, and same thing straight across from St. Patrick's on Fifth Avenue was Rockefeller Center, and so there's Jesus on the cross and the big brass doors, and when they open them, Jesus would look right across Fifth Avenue to the pagan god holding the world up. And Jesus' eyes went straight to the pagan guy's dick, right? His junk. He wasn't covered. The big thing was hanging down to his kneecap, Not Mike Downey's, no. Yes, no kidding, they need to come down. I mean, when we had the hurricane here, this whole place was like a war zone. They were all over the place. And I came in with my friends and we cut a hole so we could get in and out, right? And I cut it up. We had no big equipment. I had no skidder, no nothing. I had no crane, no front end loader, just chainsaws and bars, big railroad bars. Anyway, so there's four of us, and I cut it out so we could get in. The people at the end that had kids, I knew they needed to get in and out. The folk at the top of the hill, I knew they needed to get out, and I needed to get my car out. And so they came. We did it in one day. And then the rich people who have a place over there and rent it out, they really need it. They spent $22,000. Ooh, so yeah, these trees are. There's another one cracking across, and there's that guy's house over there, the guy who rents it out for Airbnb. Now me, I knew this was going to happen, so my property, I cut all those poplars out. So now I've been there 25 years, so the ones on the edge of my property, they're grown up like this, but I am twice the distance of this where my little travel trailer is, and plus I put it, my travel trailer in the holler, so there's like the hill. So if a tree falls down, it'll hit the hill before it hits me. So, no, I'm a guy who, plans things out. So, I like this green place. No, that's why do you think I moved here 25 years? Man, you should have seen this place 25 years ago. The cockroaches weren't here. It was just a holler folk. We had less than a mile down the hill. I went through the woods, popped out on this little farmer road, and there this lady and her husband had a nice little truck farm. So they had these nice gardens that were like an acre big, but they were all over the hill. And they had every kind of beautiful bean and vegetable and everything. And in the garage, when they would pick it all summer long and put it in baskets. You can go there, pick whatever you want. They had a little money box. You just put whatever money, not like there was no price tag on it, this by the pound. Just put whatever money you wanted to put in the money box. And they also had boxes of like, maybe 30 rolls of toilet paper. So you could get 2 or 3 rolls, whatever you needed. And they had ketchup and they had salt and they had, mustard, all the kind of things you kind of need, lard and Crisco, and they had a refrigerator with butter, and they had a cow, so they actually had like super fresh milk. And the first 5 years, that was great. So they had a washing machine and they had pumps and but they were getting old. They were in the 70s. And they had a son that was autistic, but, it's a gradating scale. So he was, being on the farm, being with mom and dad. His cousin was there, and that unit was really good. And I was just up the hill from him, so I'd just go down and, he would be there. If he needed help fixing something, I'd help him fix it. And they had issues with their electricity. Their electricity was like wired in 1920, so I just rewired the whole place. And it was like, and when I, because they had these two guys who were strong and agile, and whatever I said, they could drill these holes here, and they'd do that, and do this, and they'd do that, and I'd show them how to wire a duplex or this, and anything a little more complicated than that. They ran all the wires, but they were just, so there were 8 other what I called holler stores, and 2 of them had little restaurants in them, really great. And I had a car that worked, a really nice Kia. And so I would go to all those places, right? And one lady was really big on melons because she had a nice set. And I mean, it was just a nice little group of people within a 6-mile radius of each other. And they all, we'd have at least once a month, or at least every other week, we would go to one of their houses and they'd cook. Ooh, hear that? It's another. Boy, the trees are really fucking falling down. Anyway, so it's it was really nice for about 10 years. So I was, I would come here for 3 or 4, and I got this holler. So it was like, I got it for nothing because it was just, all the water went there. It was constantly the mud apocalypse. You got out of your car and you were totally, eaten alive by mosquitoes and no-see-ums. So all I had to do was I found this excavator who was getting divorced, so he wanted to hide his equipment from his wife. So he used my holler as his little hideaway, and he did a great job. So he took it slow because it took him about 2 years to navigate that, and so she wouldn't take his shit. So anyway, he did a great job. I can't believe how many. I just heard another crash. Can you hear the wind? Look it up. Okay. Well, I kind of know that, but I basically put myself in a place where the tree is going to hit me. It's going to hit that, and that's about 40 feet taller than me. So, and trees have already hit that. I've told a guy who owns it, like, you better cut these trees down. Well, it costs too much money. Anyway, so yeah. How many? Have I done this an hour yet? 72 minutes and 31 seconds. That's more than an hour. 5 of you are still there. It's starting to get cold. It's going to do something. Ooh, maybe rain. Ooh, maybe rain. I might have to go up the... I'm going to jump off at this moment, just so I can do it without something dying.